There are no shortcuts to becoming a great debater. Like a legitimately very good, nationally competitive, state champion at a minimum level debater. There are no shortcuts. And what do I mean by that? If you have convinced yourself that there is some secret drill that the best teams in the country or the best coaches in the country do, or that there's a brief or pieces of evidence they have access to that you don't, or that if you had just gone to this camp for 3 days or a week or whatever, or if you use this debate AI, you will become good really quickly, you are wrong. None of that stuff works. There is only one thing that works, and it is working really, really hard for an extended period of time. I'm going to assume that the majority of people watching this are Proteus fans who are familiar with me and kind of my background or whatever, but let's just pretend you're someone who found this video because you were looking up debate stuff or you were looking up shortcuts in debate, and you're like, well, what does this guy know? What are my credentials? As a competitor, I was pretty good. I was a two-time national semifinalist. As a coach, I coached the best community college debate team in the country, and my former students won the NPDA and NPTE national championships at the college level and were the top two speakers at both tournaments. And so I've coached national champions. I was never a national champion myself, but I came within 2 wins of it twice. And so pretty good. Ignoring my own skills, I have access to a network of incredible debaters, right? Just tons and tons of national champions that I've had on, Proteus stuff and who I can just talk to in general and also coaches. And so I've really tried to and made it my goal to talk to these people about if there is a secret drill, if there is an approach to practice they have that I don't, and things of that nature. And I have, without fail, found out that there is not. They just work a ton. And the reason I'm making this video is because if you watch Proteus, then you're probably a middle school, high school, or college debater, which means you're between 12 and 21. And when you're those ages, it's really easy to convince yourself that no, there is some secret, there is some trick, there is some shortcut, there is some hack that you can do. And there isn't. There is nothing you can do that is going to change the fact to get good, you have to work really hard. But insofar as there is, again, there isn't. If you're looking for a sentence that tells you, how do I become a great debater? I think that sentence is as follows. You need to find an expert to coach slash mentor you, and then you need to do and prioritize in this order doing as many competition rounds, practice rounds, and drills as possible without burning out. And also write some files. And that is literally it. There is nothing besides that. You need to find someone who knows a ton about debate so they can look at the mistakes you're making and kind of guide you in terms of how to get better. And then your top goal is to go to as many tournaments, as many competitive tournaments especially, as possible. And do as many practice rounds as possible, and then do drills. And I'm trying to make it clear that drills aren't as good as practice rounds, and practice rounds aren't as good as competition. And then all of that needs to be filtered through without burning out. Because some of you have the opposite problem of like the shortcut people, and your problem is like, well, I'm going to do 800 hours of speaking drills every day or whatever. And then you do that for a week and you give up. And it's no different than someone who's starting like an exercise regimen and they go 5 days in a row and then they're really hurt or they're, whatever, they've lost the fire and now they're not going to do it anymore. It's not sustainable. You need to do as many of these things as possible without burning out. I have a lot of people in the debate community who I admire or who I think are excellent. And I'm just going to go down a list of some of them and things I've asked them and things they've said. Tanya Prabhakar, who is one of my former students and going to be working with us at DVC this next year, which is really exciting because Tanya is the GOAT. Huge fan. She was a quarterfinalist this year at NFA. She won the Gorlock Invitational this year, which is like the biggest LD tournament. Also, Pi Cap Delta first place. Good job. Anyway, a lot of good stuff. When Tanya told me that she wanted to get a scholarship to Western Kentucky, Tanya had never really done LD. She'd literally done it one time before that. And it was like I don't know, 3 weeks or so before we needed to apply for the scholarship. But Tanya was a good Parley debater and a great IPDA debater, and frankly, she was becoming very good at Parley in that time. But bottom line, I told Tanya, okay, I'm gonna call up my friend John Salmon, who was an LD national champion at Western Kentucky, and we're just gonna do a meeting. We're gonna talk to him and kind of interview him about how he would approach going to Western Kentucky and any things he thinks we should know. And John is a really nice person, so we did this meeting, and he even agreed to stay on for like the month basically and just help Tanya and figure all this stuff out and help us with connections, and that was amazing. But when we talked to John, one thing he mentioned was how everyone talks about how Western Kentucky has the machine, or like Western Kentucky has some secret sauce that no one else does, and that's why they're the best. And his opinion was just, no, we just work harder than you. Like, we cut more evidence than you, we do more debates than you, we care more than you, and that's why we're successful. There's no secret drill, there's no secret coach. There's like, people have all these myths about how Western Kentucky works. They're like, oh, there's 15 coaches for debate, and one of them is just the cross-ex coach, and it's not really like that. They're just successful because year in and year out they do a ton of work. I think arguably the greatest Parley coach of all time, and I would say certainly the greatest Parley coach who's still coaching Parley, is Joe Provencher from UT Tyler. And I got to talk to Joe at Nationals this year, which is something I looked forward to. I hadn't really seen folks since COVID. And I just asked Joe straight up because we were doing sort of like a video series for the NPDA or the NPTE, which actually is going to, I think it's already been released. I'm not entirely sure, but whatever. I'll figure that out. Bottom line, that sort of had us brainstorm like strategies for getting better at debate, because our group was in charge of like drills and like practice type stuff. And it was like me, Joe, and a bunch of like Berkeley competitors, and so I didn't care what they had to say. I just wanted to listen to Joe. And basically, I was like, Joe, like, I mean, what do you do? Like, how do you structure your practice, or is there like any specific drills you do or that you think are great? And I come to find out, they do way less practices than we do at DVC, and they're not doing anything very special. You know, they just have like essentially like one-on-one office hours and two-on-one office hours, like with your partner, and like maybe you debate Joe during that, and try and write a file a week if you can, and that's less than we do at DVC. That's less than we did at Pacific, and it's it's still UT Tyler's been in the national finals like 3 or 4 times in the last few years. So Joe doesn't seem to think there's anything secret. I've talked to Brenna and Tristan, who again they won both Parley Nationals this year and were the top speakers respectively at each one of them. So they're I would say inarguably the two best Parley debaters right now. And I had obviously the great privilege of coaching them, and I still talk to them and hang out, and I really appreciate that. But I was asking them pretty much from day one, like, okay, what's the Berkeley secret? Like, Berkeley year in and year out is putting out these national champions. Like, what are the drills you're doing, or what's the practices you're doing? And they're basically like, actually, we pretty much get no practice rounds at all for the most part. And we just do drills on our own and kind of write stuff. And the prep room's really, really sick. But it's not like there's some secret thing. It's just they have a bunch of the smartest people who've ever debated and the best debaters, and they just are like, hey, here's some thoughts on what you should do. And that's it. There's like no secret office hour stuff. Like, frankly, there were times where they found it hard to get coaching in or to get practice rounds in. Didn't matter. Still worked really hard on their own. Still won nationals, obviously, with the support of the folks over there. So that's competitors telling you it, right? There just is no secret sauce. There is no shortcut. And all you can do is work really, really hard for as long as you possibly can. So I want to make it clear. If there is no debate AI that exists that is worth the money right now. Does not exist. And frankly, I don't think ever will exist in any meaningful capacity. It's just not a thing that's going to make you better. There is no brief you can buy that's going to make you better. There's no one camp you can go to and like, sure, there's some camps where you could really improve. If you're doing like the 7-week or 6-week camp, whatever it is for Michigan, you're doing 6 weeks of debate. Of course, you're going to be better at debate. But if you don't work after that, you're going to be garbage. The people who rely on the camp files and stuff like that end up being garbage. It's about consistently working, consistently trying to improve. And there's a ton of industry, essentially, and grifters in the debate community who just build the illusion that you can be better if you do X, Y, or Z thing that is not debating a lot at tournaments or in practice rounds with someone who's very good at debate guiding you. So, don't buy those things. Don't believe those things. And recognize that there was a price to be paid if you want to be excellent. And if you don't start paying it now, you're either going to have to pay it later with less time, or you're going to have to settle for however good you are in this current moment. So, that's all I had. Thanks a lot.